should be live.
We are live. Please do not swear, as they say at the beginning of Big Brother when it goes live.
Is that what they say at the beginning of Big Brother? You're
Yeah.
well versed in Big Brother.
Um, how dare you? I've watched. I haven't actually watched a full episode for a while. My wife and my mother-in-law were watching quite a lot, and I was around there on a Friday night, and they were watching it. But we are live on a Sunday morning.
Oh, I didn't change my name, did I? Well, it's okay, I guess, right?
You changed your name from Willem? What to?
No, I mean just like you put your website in there.
I do. And
should I put my website? It doesn't matter.
It's up to you. I'm really intrigued by your T-shirt because I feel like it's going to make me trip out.
Yes.
Oh, it's a snake.
It's called the Sailor and the Sea Serpent. It's a T-shirt I obviously only wear on special occasions. I don't pull it out very often.
Why is it called the Sailor? Is it because of the stripes?
Well, it's called the Sailor because of the stripes, and the Sea Serpent has that kind of stripes too, and it's trippy.
Yeah, oh, it is trippy. Wow.
To compensate for my lack of change of mug, I'm still having. They mostly have the same mug most of the time.
This week, I've got one of my favorite T-shirts.
Oh, that's good. I like it. That's fantastic.
Especially as a psychology teacher, your mama, and different mug.
Ooh. Is that Geppetto? That's Pinocchio?
It is
Pinocchio mug. All right.
Because really, my wife is a bit of a Disney fiend, so there's those Disney mugs in our house.
Cool.
So
we're back at school. You're back at school. I'm not back at school. Well, I'm not at school just yet, but I do need to get ready for my classes at some point. So we're back officially. We're not only talking about going back, and we have questions.
We do.
Or I have questions. I have a question.
Well, so the whole of last week, it was back to getting up early, trying to get the lockdown routine back to the work routine, because I had a really strong routine in lockdown, and I feel a bit tired. I was getting up earlier. I was still exercising in the morning. Get to school, and we had a phased return. So on Thursday, we had loads of teacher training. Thursday, 2 years came back, and then on Friday, everybody came back. And I was sitting in the sixth form common room because I had one of my lessons in there. So this is the kind of ridiculousness that happens in my school. The room where I teach is also the sixth form common room, and I was teaching in there just before break time. So I was teaching there after lunch as well. So I was in there a bit early. There's a few pupils, students kicking around, and I start telling them about teaching Tangents. One of them pulls out his phone, looks at it, and subscribes. Awesome. And I say I think he subscribes to my channel. I need to put them all on my channel anyway.
We have competing channels now. Well, I see how it is, James.
It goes live on your channel. I just take the stuff and put it on my channel and hope for the best. So because they
which channel should your pupils subscribe to? Maybe mine as well.
Well, if anybody's watching, which they might be.
I don't know if they are.
But I think.
Yeah, I think I'm the only one watching.
Are you? Okay.
Well, it's just one watching, which I think is me.
If they're watching, then
they'll be watching later.
And they'll watch it on your channel live as I gradually tell all my classes all about this. So we're talking, and I ask them a bunch of questions. I say that I'm looking for questions, and they give me a whole bunch. Awesome. I write them all down, and then I leave the piece of paper at school.
Awesome.
This is what happens when you can't use your phone in front of pupils. So we have a policy.
Oh, you're not allowed?
Not allowed to use my phone. And also, I have a feeling that I might not have been able to read my writing even if I did bring a piece of paper out.
What's the deal with masks in the UK? Are you having to wear masks at school?
Okay, no? So...
I'm going to have to wear a mask teaching. All the kids are going to wear, well, the students, they're not kids. I mean, they're kids, but, not small kids.
They're not small kids. So in our school, I'm wearing a visor, a shield for most of my classes, in communal areas and when we're moving between classes, everybody puts masks on.
Oh, it's the same as the restaurant deal here in Paris, which I find it's fascinatingly fabulous. So you have to wear a mask out of the street, but the moment so if you sit down on a bench, you're still supposed to wear your mask. But if you sit down on a terrace where you're buying a drink or coffee, then you can take it off.
So that's like outside the restaurant where you're facing out.
Or in the restaurant too. I mean, if you sit down and you're like in a restaurant, a bar or whatever, then you can take your mask off. If you get up to go to the restroom, you should put your mask on.
Wow. This is a new way of thinking, because I will quite frequently walk around with a coffee or some water.
Yep.
So
I think you may well be so if you were walking the streets of Paris, you'd be probably justified to say, hey, I'm sipping my coffee. Probably some people are going to use that as a strategy to not really wear their masks all the time. Yeah,
I was thinking I do quite frequently wear a
it's a brave new world in every sense of the term.
I do quite frequently wear a neck scarf, so I was thinking of just putting it up, walking around, putting it down.
I have no idea if that is I don't know. I don't know if you'd get fined or not in the streets of Paris, because there's fines.
Oh wow.
Okay. Well, of course they're enforcing that shit. Like policemen are, full on. And there's plainclothes policemen checking on people too.
Oh wow.
Yeah, we have a very dangerous. We have a dangerous security problem in France. The president. Anyway, let's not go political right now.
We might end up being political. I think we will. We are going to end up political in this episode. So I'm talking to the pupils. Back to the story, and they're giving me all these great questions. And one of them says some stuff that we've covered before. Mm-hmm. Should I go to university? Like that kind of stuff.
Fantastic. You could go, yeah, great. We've done that one.
I've done an episode on that.
We'll see if we want to circle back if something else shows up. But right now, I don't think it's necessary just yet.
Yeah. And then I was teasing one of them. I was saying, oh, you're going to go to Oxford and do ancient history. He's really clever. Mm-hmm. He's one of those super annoying pupils who do no work and then ace the test. Like one of the most frustrating, but he's very sharp, very well read, like loves history, but he's also super into science and chemistry and all that kind of stuff. And then I said, oh, you're going to do chemistry at university and learn to make drugs and make loads of money or something like that. Actually, no, before the money thing, I said, you could, yeah. So I said, you're going to do ancient history at Oxford. And he said, no, I don't want to do ancient history. I said, why? Because I want to make money. Okay, I was like, okay, you want to make money, fair enough. And then he said, okay, I have a question. And this is the question. Does it matter what university you go to?
Didn't we do that one before?
We did something about should you go to university, and then we ended up talking.
We talked about the Russell Group and all that.
And we did talk all about that. But it was, I think the nuance to this question is he wants to make money. He knows he wants to go to university. He's really clever, but he's kind of worried. I think there might be a bit of parental pressure, which is why I kind of said about him going to Oxford. Does it matter what university so I'm taking his question and adapting it. Does it matter what university you go to if you want to make money? And I straight away was thinking all about elitism and access to high-paid, high-net-worth individuals and who you know, and then getting introduced to all of that stuff. Mm-hmm. But
I feel like we talked about all that. I mean, we can talk about it some more. Sorry, I cut you off.
No, let's talk about. I want to know what you think, and let's talk about it some more. And because France is like.
I mean, yes. Let's move on. Yes, let's talk about something else.
No, do you really think it matters if you want to make money?
I mean, so the two propositions are interesting altogether. You can just already pull them apart.
Exactly.
It's always, of course, it's always yes and. So yes, it matters what university you go to. If you want to make money, what does that even mean? What does that mean? I want to make money. It's a ridiculous statement to begin with. It's not ridiculous insofar as, of course, you want to make money. I understand that. But What does that mean? You want to be Jeff Bezos? Of course. You want to be like, do you want more money than you can ever dream what to do with? Do you want to be Scrooge McDuck and swim in it? Do you want to be happy and have enough money to go by and do a job that you enjoy? Do you want to do a job that do you want to be miserable in your studies to be able to think that you have the right way to go and make the money that you want to be making? Or is it just you firmly believe that there's no money to be made in ancient history, which is not necessarily true? There are
This is
people
why.
that are people that are doing their jobs, and a tenure. I actually several examples from imagine a tenured professor of ancient history in a good university, not even necessarily Oxford, but even better Oxford. You have good money and a good lifestyle, and you have time for research and writing, and if that's what you enjoy, then great. You can also be doing all sorts of other stuff with ancient history. Yes, of course, it's a niche thing, but that's why you want to be, if you go for things like that, you want to be digging in deep and do it full on. That brings us back to that video from Alan Watts about do what you dream. And it's text though. You could just go listen to Alan Watts talk about his students and to his students who are all like, oh, I want to make money. I want to make money. And he's just like, he tells them, I'm just paraphrasing. I mean, go listen to him. It's on YouTube too. He says, and I'm sure we've said this before, find something that you're really interested in, pursue that in every possible aspect. And similar to also the advice that Yuval Noah Harari gives to students, um, and then create a market and be paid for the thing that you're a specialist in. Or follow the rules of the system of everything that you hear. And I mean, if you enjoy that, sure, go do that. That's fine. And then more specifically on the universities, I was just listening to an episode of On the Media yesterday. So WNYC podcast that has, it's mostly American media, but there is worldwide news. And there was an intervention from Scott Galloway, and this was a lot about universities in the States and what they are today, how they're reopening with social distancing, are online courses valid for what circumstances, etc. And he was talking about how universities and the brands they are no longer teaching things. They're just they are private equity funds that brass a lot of money and happen to be delivering degrees. And he was giving as an example. And so if the universities that have the right status, Princeton, Harvard, all the top universities, are able to charge even more for their opportunity for people to be going there, that is only a status symbol that is not necessarily related to how much money you're going to be making. Although, of course, if you do manage that, but that's the other thing he was talking about, the vast majority of the people who get in there are all the elite money already. They already have that, whether they go to Harvard or not. Plus, a very few, the top of the top of the top of the lower and middle class income that are just ridiculously, stupidly brilliant and manage to get through all the hoops to be able to have a scholarship at one of those universities. Scott Galloway, who's published a bunch of books, super famous marketing dude, teaches at NYU Stern. His course is now his class costs like $7,000 or $8,000.
Wow. Okay.
For a semester. He used to have 170 students. Now the class is going online. He has 320 or 350 students, and it's the same price.
Okay.
So if you really want to make money, own a really fancy old university or launch one.
So this is why we have these conversations. Because I can't say everything you just said as well as you just said it in the space. Not really. Okay, in the space of about 2 minutes, because in school it's really pressured. At the time I was trying to write down what they were saying, log into my computer, think about what my next lesson was, harass people to leave because the
Oh no,
bell
no,
was about to
no. Of
go.
course, I understand. You can't
So
you can't do it that way when you're at work,
yeah,
really.
but in my lessons I have said very similar things, and I love the way you just unpick the question. This is
And
making money.
just exactly like the other episode that we did about the graduate degrees that talked about quality of universities. We're both biased, and your students might not want to listen to me because I don't own a diploma degree from those universities. But this is more about, but even for that particular student, as the example that you provided, this is more about what am I studying rather than the university I'm going to, isn't it?
I think it's a combination of both, because that's what I said to him. Oh yeah, you want to do chemistry, but then that's when he said, no, I want to make money. So the Alan Watts thing. So I haven't watched it. I've seen bits of it. I keep seeing it everywhere.
It's only like 15 minutes, that one. It's not long.
Is it? I thought there was a longer one.
I mean, of course, it's only a part of a longer thing.
But yeah, the basic premise is find what you love, and like, can you explain it again? Because I can't remember what it was.
The basic premise is that all the students are very, very concerned about money, and that money doesn't make you happy, in short. And now research has shown, and we know this now for sure. I mean, like, if you want the scientific psychological study, it is there, that money makes us happy only up to a point.
Yeah.
That once you have all your needs covered, there's no more money doesn't make you happy, and pursuing it doesn't make you happy. Actually, it's more of an effort and it's more work. I mean, work, I don't know if that's the right term, but or growth or questioning or inquiry or whatever you want to use as the right to look for, what is it that makes me happy? What is it that I want? And then there's a bunch of wrong assumptions. So that student, and it's normal because the whole system of society is operating like that. So don't forget that, and this is where I was talking about a little bit more political, I guess. We live inside of a system in which the 0.1%, the 1% in general, not individually, but as a system, have no particular interest in things changing. Okay, so that means that there's a need for a certain amount of people, the vast majority, 99%, to be operating and performing jobs to have the system keep functioning the way it does. So there needs to be students in the university so the university can keep dishing out degrees the way it does, and there needs to be people cleaning as well as people teaching, and the people owning it, so that they're like, well, this can go take over, because there's nobody's doing it, then there's a bit of a problem because the robots are not ready just yet. And even when the robots will be ready, they'll need, we need somebody to keep programming them. So you should go do that because that makes more money. And it's not a bad thing to do necessarily, but do you enjoy programming computers or robots?
Yep. What does
I'm not sure. I didn't even finish but the summary otherwise is: be smarter about it and go look at what you love, be a master at what you love, and you will find naturally a market for that.
Yeah.
There will be people interested in it, however that happens.
Which kind of relates to everything we said about deep work and everything we said about Ikigai as well.
Sure. Ikigai too. And Ikigai just also, of course, takes into account what is good for society, what is needed. So they're more of the Japanese concept, which is, you got to respect and be part of the society, not like it's taking advantage of you, but now less and less Japanese people, they have a big society problem. When I listen to another podcast about that, and actually it's not only Japan, it's everywhere. France has the same problem, which is a demographic problem. Japan is losing population, and
you mean like
actually that is in modern romance.
Longer?
People are living longer, but they're not reproducing.
Yes.
Young people are not even interested.
Yep.
And so that was one chapter in Modern Romance, the book we were just talking about from Mrs. Ansari. I can't remember if I mentioned it last week. No, I was reading it last week, so I probably didn't mention it. Really, really great book. But they go to Japan as well, and they find out that they have focus groups with these young people that are in their mid to late 20s, and they're like, no, I'm not interested in dating. I play computers, hang out with my friends, get drunk. I have a lot of work to do. It's not the right time.
Population pyramid is going like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And all Western developed societies are lowering, where a lot of Europe is not to the point of renewing the population. We're just under.
Yeah.
Now that's a whole other thing. It makes me think of Idiocracy, the movie.
I haven't seen that. I haven't
seen Idiocracy?
No, I know. I haven't seen it. I know.
All right, students, you should watch Idiocracy, because that is absolutely a movie to watch when you're in high school. It's a movie to watch your age as well. You can still rewatch it. It works. Yeah. And I'm sure you've heard about it tons, because everybody's been talking about it these past 3.5 years for some reason. The main reason being Donald Trump, and not the only leader along those lines. But anyway, it's Brave New World meets Idiocracy.
What's happening now, or in general, or What's the number one reason to watch that film, do you think?
It's funny.
Just because it's funny? Okay, cool.
I mean, I could give you it's a real insight, and yes, the opening scenes, but not to give a spoil. Well, I'm going to spoil the movie. I don't want to spoil the movie. The opening scene is really good.
Yeah, I've.
And I'm sure you've heard about it.
I've heard about it, and our mutual friend Adam was really shocked that I hadn't seen it.
Yeah, I'm shocked.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe I can just watch it at school and say, no, this is part of your teaching. Just watch this film.
Sure.
There was. It was what? So
your students will be disappointed. If I was in high school, I would have gone, "Oh man, you should have told me that. I would have smoked this joint before coming to class." Nobody said that. Nobody ever said that or recommended that. Certainly not me. Forget the last half second. Nobody said that.
Because nobody ever does that.
No.
Ever.
No. If ever a parent watches this, because this is a family-friendly show,
in school,
nobody ever does that.
Nobody ever does that in school or outside school.
There's no bourbon in my coffee right now.
There better not be. Jeez.
No, but I'll tell you what. Yesterday night, I was like, I need some liquor at my house to have. Sometimes I just fancy just a little nightcap, and I don't have a nice bottle of scotch or something like that, or bourbon or whatever. Anyway, but I digress. Which is part of the point of the show.
The point of what we're doing here.
Should we talk about booze some more? No? Okay.
No, not yet. We might, but you said something really, as a throwaway comment in everything you've been saying about the future and robots and all of that, and Alan Watts. But what does Yuval Noah Harari say about finding a job and all of that? Because he has very strong opinions about the educational system.
Similar stuff. I mean, he says
21 essays yet.
He says, and this was from a 1-hour conversation with students, university students from a couple years ago, I want to say, that was in London. Anyway, he says similarly to Alan Watts, or I say it's similar, to pick a field or pick a question that it's going to be, and I've said this on the show before, so I feel like I'm repeating a lot. Did you get I don't like your question? He pick a topic, or pick a subject, and formulate it as a question, ideally, that is of matter to you and possibly society, the world, the environment. And because the world is so complex, it's going to be cross-disciplinary. Yeah.
Yeah, interdisciplinary, cross-disciplinary. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's it. Just go for that. But it might be something that is not your job that you get paid for necessarily. How are we going to solve the environment? So then you have to go and go. So he says, go and touch and study all those different fields to be of value.
Okay, but then schools and universities.
But then how do you adapt? Is that where you're going? How do I adapt to the cog? How do I shape? Because that's the other way. It's the system and society, the way it's been created up to now, and the way your students talk because they're inside of it. Yeah. And I talk very much as somebody who is kind of outside the system. But I mean, I'm inside it, and I'm very, I was going to say respectful, sort of, mindful at the very least.
Yeah.
Because, I get paid by people who need me. And I'm slightly outside because I am freelance and I'm independent, and it's by choice. And sometimes I wonder about the choice. But anyway, what I was going to say is, um, the play school things where you just have to place the square in the square peg in the square hole, the
Oh
round
yeah,
peg
yeah,
in the
yeah,
round
yeah,
hole.
yeah, 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 yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So when I want to make money, or I want to have this job, I want to have this training, you are thinking, and school is made to shape you to be a peg to fit in a certain size hole. The
Yep.
certain size hole is called that particular career or that particular
Yep.
job. And it's not wrong to do that, because there are a lot of jobs that are still going to be around, or that are probably going to evolve in certain ways. But, and we've said this before, doctors, lawyers, programmers, you need to learn a certain amount of things. But even programmer is just a vast field of, like, that is a catch-all term for a lot of different things you could be doing with that. So there is thinking that you need to, that studying is to shape you in a certain shape so that you fit the job sized hole that you want to get into, right? um which, the danger of that is that all the shapes of jobs are changing,
Yes.
so you don't know what shape you should be molding yourself into, except that the institution of school is molding you in a certain way that is not, it's not right. So what you should be doing with school and education, ideally, is to learn as much as possible how to use your brain so that you can shape and reshape yourself, because the shape of those holes of jobs is evolving and changing so fast that and that is part of what Harari says as well, the only clear thing that we know for sure is that it's always changing and it's always in flux. And you can be guaranteed that whatever you're learning now, if you think you're going to be fitting a certain size hole, it's going to change by the time you graduate, by the time you go through university, etc. But my point is also that to shape yourself into a certain type of job because you think it's the right thing to do, or whatever the reason is, like, I think it's important that you have a look at what do you enjoy and what makes you happy. And it might sound hippie-ish, but it's like, what is your life for? Is your life for fitting a certain kind of, like, size job? And then, and then you take, so you imagining the play school box, right? Just like you take your peg, you put it through, and then it falls through the other side of the box. Then you pick it up and do it again.
Yeah.
So the way it goes is like you mold yourself up so that you're the size of the job. Then you just try to put it in, which is kind of having interviews and finding a job. And once you find the job, it fits. And then it takes about, perhaps, for traditionally, well, probably what still a lot of parents would want, 30, 40, 50 years for the shape to go through the hole, which is your life. And then it falls at the end and you're dead.
That is such a great way of explaining it.
So, I mean, you don't die immediately. When you're falling to the bottom, you have a little bit of time. It's called retirement. It's like, you're like, all right, what am I doing now? My shape is just like at the bottom of the box. Should I start over again, or just what is there to do?
Yeah. I think you've explained it really well. You've explained it really, really well. So I know you don't like the question, and I know it feels like
No, I'm just kidding.
stuff.
Well, the thing is, I feel we're repeating a lot of stuff.
Yeah, but you've come up like with a whole new way of explaining it that I'm going to nick and keep explaining in school.
Yeah, please. I mean, you got to encourage me to keep creating those kinds of analogies. They're fun.
No, but it's such a great thing, because as you were talking, I'm realizing schools, we don't do that.
No,
we don't.
So, and there are addendums to what I'm saying. One is the scenario I just described may still exist, but it's going to be increasingly rarer, because people have already been and are and will be changing more and more their careers throughout, because the jobs in the markets and the needs are changing so fast. So that's going to change. And then there's a lot of scenarios where people are like, they burn out. I'm bored of this fucking, just what am I doing? And then you go into the rat race or hamster wheel kind of analogies. So, and how much money is enough money? And are you just doing this because that is what the system of society and life is dictating. Now, you know what? You probably should, because the way it operates now, we can't have every single person just be outside or semi outside the system. Certainly not for the 1% of people that control or own everything. And again, this is a systemic point that I'm making.
Mm.
Not a conspiracy theory point.
Yeah.
It's not
Yeah.
individual. So, as an individual, I can only imagine that a bunch of really extremely high net worth individuals will be saying, sure, just do your best to go through life and enjoy everything and have all the experiences that you can. But there's a certain amount of businesses that own a certain amount of money and generate a certain amount of revenue, that for the billionaires that are making lots of money, that need the employees,
Mm.
and they need their employees to stay there, not have ideas like you can go away and do whatever you want. No, don't do
Mm.
that.
Mm.
Because if everybody does that, how are the businesses going to thrive?
Do you think there are
Now,
certain?
that is a joke what I said, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay,
But do you think there are a certain amount of people who are happy doing those jobs,
sure,
being those cogs in the wheel of whatever, and they're happy with that?
of course. I'm sure there are.
Mm.
And there are people I've come across. So it reminds me, for example, of somebody I met in Chicago once at a bar at a party, and I kind of introduced myself and told them a little bit about myself, and he was like, "Wow, I'm just half exhausted just listening to you." Like, you have the life that I dream of, but absolutely do not desire, or something like that. He was like, "You've had a drive. I've occasionally dreamt about having that kind of life, and I know that I'm really not interested." And I'm very happy to have like to live where I live, and to have been born there and grow up there and live in the countryside and have my job and go to it, and 9 to 5 and whatever. And I don't even think that guy in particular had a 9 to 5 job. But I also talked to some other people who were like, "Well, you guys are way too ambitious. I don't have that kind of ambition. I just go to work and happy to have a holiday." And
And there's nothing wrong with that. I
no,
think
it's just what that's why I keep saying, like,
yeah.
what matters is what makes you happy. So in deep work, I was talking to another friend in common, Richard. Uh, Sangit's is Richard.
Oh yeah.
And I told him about deep work, and well, this friend is particularly contrarian. I'm quite contrarian, but he's particularly contrarian. So he would take the opposite stance of whatever you're saying, whatever you're saying, whatever you're saying. So he started immediately reacting to, like, well, that is the wrong thing to do. I'm like, well, maybe you should read the book. Oh, so I realized I said I said a wrong word. So the definition of deep work in the book is about producing valuable work, the best of your cognitive abilities, really, really focused.
Yeah.
And I think I said meaningful instead of valuable. So he took it like, well, who's to say what's meaningful or not? I'm like, well, okay, no, that's not what I meant. But the whole point of the book is that he describes, and there's part of the exercises in it, are for you to define what your own value is that you want to
Yeah.
output.
Yeah.
And again, that is backtracking to what I said earlier, that is the more challenging part,
Yeah.
is for you to think about and to experience and think and live through what is it that you're interested in. And ideally, you have some teachers or experiences around school and education, because it's normal that you don't know that if you're young. I
Mm.
still barely know what that is. I mean, I have a much better idea, but I certainly didn't know when I was 16 or 17 or 15, barely
Mm.
not when I was 20. So it's normal, like this, specifically to your students or to anybody, young people watching this. Part of the most interesting learning, but that's not necessarily how school is designed, is to experience that and look at
Yeah.
and have the opportunity to study all sorts of stuff, to say, I'm interested in this. And to your student who doesn't want to study ancient history, I mean, I don't know, maybe he'll do it on the side as a hobby, and that's cool. But don't deprive yourself of something that you're interested in because you think it's not going to make you money. And
That's
how
a really
much
good point.
money do you want to make, and how much money do you hope to make? What is your then let's be real. Like, what is your socioeconomic background? How much
Mm.
money do you have in your trust fund? Oh, you don't have a trust fund? All right, well, that's a whole different conversation. I don't have a trust fund, by the way, but I don't own anything. I don't owe anything. I mean, I own a little bit, but not much. Um, so the conversation is very different. whether depending where you come from, how much you need and how much you want and how much you have.
Yeah. When I've said to some classes, money doesn't bring you happiness, it brings a cacophony of disagreement. And I mean, I do say it deliberately to provoke the cacophony, but every time, I mean, and it's different as they get older, but it's really, really put massive pushback when I say that money doesn't make you happy.
What do they say?
They say, yes, it does. Don't be ridiculous. If you were a tramp living on a road and you had nothing, you wouldn't be happy. And I'd be like, well,
how do you know?
How do you know? How do you know that? And why are there billionaires who are depressed if money makes you happy?
Exactly.
And it provokes the whole discussion.
As equally, so that is also, it's, it's a poor debate to begin with, to answer that. Now, I wouldn't expect them to necessarily be great debaters. I don't think I am one. I'm a great conversationalist, and I enjoy conversations over debates, because debates is just trying to win a conversation, which I think is silly in the first place. But then I'm not a lawyer, and I've never wanted to be one. So using an anecdotal point to shut somebody up is not a conversation or a debate. And you don't know that, and that student doesn't know that. Now, equally, like, well, how much should I give you for you to be happy right now? Money-wise. Like, how much is your money, how much is your happiness worth? If you think money is happiness, then it should be quantifiable. How much money is your happiness? And to your students, they'll probably have different answers, but I think it might actually be an interesting conversation. Okay, great. Money is happiness. All right, great. How much money? Yeah, and have them raise hands and see, like, what do they say? Do you know how much your parents make? Are they happy? But the proper answer is probably sometimes they're happy, sometimes they're not. Oh, that's very interesting. But are they sometimes happy and sometimes not with the same amount of money in the bank? Then is there a direct cause and effect? As we said before, it's been proven and shown that yes, to a certain extent, because if you have what you need to sustain yourself and provide, then it makes a difference. Now, there's also different ways to live a life.
Yeah.
For me to choose to be independent and to live with occasionally being worried about where my money is going to come from to pay my rent.
Yeah.
In exchange for the freedom that it provides with my time, because I also know for sure, and this is more on the Tim Kreider, We Learn Nothing side of things. And there's a 10-minute video called Lazy Manifesto or The Busy Trap. That is one of my favorite ever things to listen to. And I love that book. And he's a fantastic comedian. And he's just so true about the human nature.
Never heard of it.
Did I not tell you about this thing?
No.
I'll send it to you right away because it's on YouTube. Tim Ferriss was a fan and he published the 10 first minutes. And then I read the rest of the book. Those 10 minutes are an article in the New York Times and an audio version that is on YouTube and elsewhere. That is very funny, extremely insightful. And, this is also just completely obvious, but depending on where you're at, you may well be in different places to hear it or not. But he says in that video, I'll always choose time over money because money is something that you can make. I can make more, I can have less, but time is not, like, you're never going to get it back.
Yeah.
And it's income we have 24 hours a day and we have this in our lifetime.
Yeah.
And it's short. It goes quick. I mean, over the summer and right now I'm like confronting my relationship with death as well, because I've had deaths in the family and people ill and of course there's something that's very, very far, depending on what your life is, but it can be very far as a young person because you have a lot of time, you have your whole life ahead of you. And I say that it depends because some young people, of course, have had more or less dealings with death, depending on who died around them.
The Tim Urban post on his Wait But Why blog about how often he sees his parents. I love Tim
Urban as well.
I know, he's great. Like,
he's publishing all his big series that I've not read the rest of it yet. I'm only at the beginning. Anyway, sorry, keep going. Yeah, he illustrates with squares, right?
Yeah, with squares or with circles.
Awesome.
How often he's going to see his parents because they live differently and in a different place to him. I also show the procrastination monster TED talk to a lot of students.
Did you read my last 2 blog posts?
No.
Yeah. I really want to have your opinion about them.
I should read them. Well, I'll read them for next week, and we'll talk about them next week, because I'll link.
What else should we say about the question?
Weave a question.
The question is, yeah. Oh, sorry.
There's a few more things about what you're saying. So the time thing. I've been playing around with launchers because I have an Android phone like you, playing around with different launchers on my phone, and
I don't do any of that.
Okay. This is,
what's a launch again? Is that your home screen? Yeah.
A launcher is like the thing that you can set up on your home screen, so you have like a different how you access all your apps.
Okay.
And sure. I look at my wife's. I'm like, it just looks like I don't know how. It looks like this to me. Like, how does she use it? There's just a list of apps. I read a post about minimalism on your phone, and I changed my phone, and I can't use it any other way. So I've been fiddling around. This is what I did in summer holidays, like in lockdown. Fiddling around with my phone, and there's a launcher. Yeah, and so this does relate. This does relate. So there's a book called Indistractable, which I do want to read, which is about how much apps and notifications and they're like addictions, and they're designed to interrupt our thinking.
Did you take speed reading classes or speed reading stuff? I was talking about speed reading yesterday.
No.
Because apparently, like a lot, and particularly like the whole speed reading thing, I understood being explained what it's about. It's really about hacking books so that you can read most of the nonfiction stuff that we're talking about, like deep work and Undistractable. Because there's lots of fluff.
Yeah.
So it's about like being able to read the book in an hour or under, basically by hacking it and only taking away the most important stuff.
It's true, but there's something.
But then if you enjoy, but my whole thing
enjoyable about.
So I came to the same idea of talking about watching or listening to podcasts or watching videos at double speed.
Yeah.
Do you do that? I've decided purposefully not to do that, unless
I've done it a little bit, but it's no fun.
Well, I was like, I usually do this for my own entertainment and for learning. So it was like, what is the purpose of doing it twice as much? Aside from like cramming it twice as much so it feels like work. And I'm like, wait a minute, is this really? And again, this is like, I'm going to take this to my grave. Is it really worth my time just cramming twice as much? For what, really? I mean, and knowing that there is about the latest, I mean, I'm sure it's more now, 96 hours of content uploaded every minute to YouTube.
Wow.
So I'm not going to be able to go through all of it, even at double speed.
Because part of the joy is reading the book and then allowing my brain to just explore. Same with the podcast. So I'm fiddling with my phone, and there's a launcher that has in the corner. So Indistractable again is about changing your phone. I mean, the book is interesting as it is, but there's someone who's created an Indistractable launcher. So you're using your phone as a tool, not as a way of stopping you. That it's just a permanent distraction. In the corner of this launcher, it shows the percentage that you are through your day, and the percentage that you are
terrifying.
Through the year.
It sounds terrifying.
I know. I was like, wow.
Do you find that useful, or I would be like, I think I'd put deer in headlights. It would scare me. I'd be like, I can't. It's good for me to look at that from time to time, but to have it every day under like, I'd be like the White Rabbit in Alice in Wonderland. I'd be like, no time, no time, no time.
I don't have it on my phone, but I thought it was a really fascinating idea. I mean, I've got a watch that's, and I tell the pupils about this. One of my watches is a mirror, and it looks like you look at it and you can see your face. One hand is remember, the minute hand is remember. It says remember, and then the hour hand is you will die. And it becomes wallpaper after a while, but every so often when I'm wearing it, it's like, oh yeah. It's a memento mori. That whole
reminds
idea.
Me again. Did we talk about the fact that I'm super looking forward to the next Pixar movie?
Oh, you mentioned it very briefly.
Okay, well, I'm mentioning it briefly again.
Well, I'm sure we're going to come back to that, because I think everything we've been talking about, the way you unpicked the student's question about which university should I go to, if I want to make money, or does it
By the way,
matter what university?
so to circle back this the pragmatic answer on yes, as I said at the beginning,
Yeah.
The easiest way to do that is there are rankings, and I'm sure there's got to be an article or research somewhere that shows how much money as a first salary the graduates from that university get.
Yeah.
So you can aim for the highest that you get into, and that's your answer done.
Yeah, yeah.
And then you can, like, in 5 years' time or 10 years' time, come back and tell me if money made you happy.
Correct. And I love the fact that,
and hopefully you'll have found something else that makes you happy. And I'm not saying don't do that. Of course, obviously, if you have more money at the beginning of your career, it's a good thing overall, generally speaking, because because a lot of students are starting already with a lot of debt and crippling debt. You're starting your life in a really messed up situation. It's even worse in the States, but that's a whole other viper's nest of stuff. Yeah.
Viper's nest. And having that question and allowing us to go deeply into things, and so much of the repeated themes that we come up with, like self-awareness, find something you're interested in, explore, listen to interesting people, give yourself time to discover who you are and what you're into, all the different resources and ideas and reading that we've both done. And I think the deep work keeps coming up a lot. I'm going to start recommending it to my students. Sure. I haven't really recommended that book that much. I've recommended to members of staff because I get frustrated by how much.
Well, I found it useful for me. I don't know how useful it is for students. I don't know, because you're supposed to be doing that already. Although I think it would be very useful to have a few methodologies for studying that if they don't have them.
He does have another book, like Become an A-grade Student. I think that was his first book.
Yeah, and I hesitated reading his other books. I think I said that last time or like the week ago. And then I thought, you know what? I need to actually, this is going to be more of the same stuff. There's a lot of fluff in his book, right? It's very didactic. It's good, but it is very much like, let me tell you this story to prove that point, to say and repeat it again and again 3 times. And, by the way, I aspire to be writing like that, and it's very, very clear, and it works, and it's what sells, I think, too. So that's not to be taken. But I was like, I need to. I have a lot of other books that I want to read that I either had on my shelf on different topics. And I'm going to use what I learned from this particular book rather than go become fanboy of Cal Newport and want to read everything he's done. Because I think there's a lot of ideas that are going to be repeating itself. And like his newest book, which is about just against distractions of the social media age or something like that.
I think it's digital minimalism. It's got quite an arresting image of the phone thing cut.
Yeah, I read the first bit of a review on Goodreads by someone who was like, I mean, it was all right, but it's basically rehashing the same thing as Deep Work, an extended thing.
Okay.
Which I'm like, all right, you know what? Digital minimalism is not something I need to read about right now.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there's a lot of influences over, or maybe it's me. Maybe I discount the amount of influence that I have over young people as a teacher and my particular style of teaching. Because I do get asked, I mean, I'm collecting all these questions, and I know I'm going to have loads for episodes that we'll be able to talk about. But when they ask me stuff, I give a throwaway answer as a facetious thing, or I don't give them an answer, or I say, go figure out yourself, or whatever.
But I think it's true that there's value in taking it seriously, because I did, and I'm sorry I wanted to discount the question because it feels like we were rehashing a lot of stuff that we already said. But there is something to be taken seriously and properly discussed. And okay, money, like, all right, how much money? Money makes you happy, and you want to be pursuing money. Let's look at, all right, what is your aim? Because it's your aim as a teenager is probably not realistic. Just like when I was a small kid, I thought 100 currency of whatever was an enormous amount of money. Of course. And then now as an adult and with a lot more experience, I realized that also, like, what are you trying to buy? Do you want to have the experience of having a lot of money? And it's not that I would spit on it. If somebody like gave me a lot of money, I wouldn't say no. Not, I do live in the world.
Yeah. Yeah. I did have this conversation with a bunch of students, actually one class.
How much do they think they want to make?
Yeah, this is the question I was asking. By the time you're 25, how much do you want to be earning?
Oh, by 25, you asked them? I would go like, I don't know, just generally. So anyway, what's the,
I put a time on it. I think it was 25. One of them said.
So that would be their first job out of graduation, more or less, wouldn't it?
Well, who knows if they go to university or not. So there's a range of answers, and I'd be interested to know what you think about this.
Okay.
And like, especially your reaction, it'd be like a reaction video. So one student said, and we also talk about net worth, like how much they'll be worth versus how much they're earning. One of them said, "Oh yeah, I want to be earning £80,000 a year by the time I'm 25."
Okay.
Another one said, I think I'll be worth $1 million by the time I'm 25.
Great.
Yeah, I'll be worth $1 million.
Based on just.
That's what they want. That's what
they want. And being worth $1 million is not even that. It doesn't weigh much these days.
Yeah,
it's horrible, but I don't have $1 million at all. But if I had, I'd be like, oh my God, it's just like, it's billions that really matter now. Not $1 million is like nothing.
$1 million is like nothing. And then another one
said, buy a small apartment in London for $1 million.
That's true. That's true. That's true. And then another guy said he doesn't think he'll be earning very much, but he thinks I think he said he'll have a house, he'll own a house or something like that by the time he's 25.
Cool.
So it was the quality of the conversation was very much this amount of money. I'll be happy with this amount of money.
Yeah.
Rather than the experiences or what they will have experienced by that time. Because
so do you think the headlines of like the press headlines that say that this generation is more after experiences than money, is it, because have you heard of that kind of stuff?
I have, but I think the press headlines are talking about people who are in their early 20s, mid 20s.
Yeah, maybe they're older, but I wonder how much, because I usually should think those kind of generational truths are complete BS anyway.
Some of them are, and
some of them are just truths of that age group, whatever the age group over the ages.
Exactly, because I remember I really got into self-development work and books when I was 20, 21. But when I was 18, I was completely different. And that's 3 years. In that 3 years, so much changed because it was the first time I was experiencing so many things. And I'm thinking, like, and the 3 years now, between the time I was 40 and I'm 43 now, I mean, quite a lot has happened, to be fair, but not to the same monumental, momentous, like life-changing degree. So I think it's really interesting being around these young people and their opinions and how many themes repeat themselves.
I'm looking forward to it. My students are going to be older, of course, but it's going to be very interesting to be. I'm not around a lot of young people, particularly. I mean, of course, it would be weird if I was. I think I've said this before. But it'll be interesting to hear, whatever. And they're going to be second-year students, so they'll be like 19, something like that, ish.
Yeah, 1920 there will be.
Ish, yeah. 1920. And then fifth-year students who are probably like half-time working, I think, at that point in the program.
Fifth year? Is it like, how long is the degree in France?
Masters 2.
Ah, okay.
Second-year masters.
Yeah, do you know what's interesting?
So they're going to be 23 to 26.
A lot of my younger colleagues, and even a lot of the people who I taught, actually, this is a side note. Some of my younger colleagues I could have taught. They would have been at school. Yeah. Actually, and it's just anyway.
Reminding ourselves that we're old. Thank you, James.
Yeah. Well, next month I'm going to be 44. Oh my God, it's less than a month. I'm going to be 44.
Oh yeah, your birthday is then. Okay, I don't realize I don't even know when your birthday is.
3rd of October. Oh my God, 44. Anyway. So I've even lost the train of thought. The younger people who've experienced all these things, and now they're working. Now they're in their like 20s, 30s, whatever. So many of them I'm still in touch with. they're now doing a master's. They feel they have to do a master's, and we've talked about this before.
Yes, should I do a master's? We did a whole episode about that.
We did, and I'm thinking I would like to do a master's purely because I think it'd be really interesting. It's got nothing to do with my career, and I'm thinking of doing a master's in data analytics, so I can learn how to.
Yeah, you told me that. I want to do sociology, but first, I'm also thinking of I should have a master's just to as an equivalent of my professional experience in information communication, basically.
Yeah.
That's something that I tried to look at last year and failed to, and then everything got delayed because of the lockdown and blah blah blah. Anyway,
would you do a master? I'm guessing you do a master's and work.
Yeah, this is so. There's one side of doing a master's that I'm really interested to study a topic.
Yeah.
Now, there's another side that is very pragmatic on having the level so that I have the badge on my resume, CV.
Right. Yeah.
And then there's an even more pragmatic thing, which is that to teach. So there's a French law that's going to be passed in the next year or two because it was delayed because of COVID about I think if I didn't really go into it, but basically you're gonna need the same degree to teach that degree to students. You need the level to teach it.
Okay.
I don't think I will for what I'm teaching in school here because it's a private school, so they can kind of do whatever they want. Well, they can't do whatever they want actually because they're still under, they're under authority of the government to deliver degrees. So I don't know actually. I did ask the question, and I'll find out over the next few months.
What was interesting was you said that they want someone who's got real world experience.
Oh yeah, they're particularly interested in that, and they like that side of things. Actually, that reminds me, I need to get ready a proposal for a workshop for an event they have towards the end of the year. And I've been told several times one of the things that for sure the students are going to absolutely ask me a lot about is how is it for real? Like, how is it to be in the workplace for real? Like, what happens?
Yeah.
And what happens in Singapore, in the States, and in London, and that I have that experience in all those places.
And you can tell them to watch our episodes as well.
Of course.
You can collect some questions.
Maybe I will, for sure.
Collect questions and ask me.
Yeah. I will. My first class is on the 17th. Yeah, it's in 10 days. I need to get ready.
Okay, cool.
And then the second year students, that's the second year students. The fifth year students, I begin on the 9th of October.
Great. I'm interested to see what your students will say because they're older than the ones I teach, but a lot happens in those years.
They picked a direction because they're studying communication and advertising, so presumably there's an interest in that, unless they just also because it's a private school, so you have to pay for it. So there's an interest, and they're like they convince their parents they want to spend them. I mean, I'm assuming their parents, maybe they're paying it themselves, but the vast majority of cases, I suspect the parents.
Yeah, because the masters I'm looking at is designed for busy professionals, but I don't know how I would. I could probably do. It's like they said 20.
So how do you go? What is your? I know we want to wrap up, but what is your process? What do you need to look at?
Well, they said
to do that thing. Like, do you need to apply? Do you need to have enough money?
Yeah.
Do you need to have enough time? What do you need?
Yeah, I'd need to apply. I'd need to pay for it, and I think I'd do a combination of saving plus saying to my parents who have education is great. My mom really wants me to do it. And it's something like 26 hours a week I'd need to find on top of
it's heavy stuff.
So I'm like, I don't know how in the
is it all remote?
Yeah.
Well, and that's one advantage is with everything going on, as we've mentioned, there's a lot more programs online.
Yeah.
Now, on the downside is like big universities that used to offer a lot of courses online for not much money are going to offer it for a lot more money. Now, there might be cheaper options to the thing for me is I don't know. I was thinking I would study in French, but now I'm kind of making a conscious decision to focus more on English than French in terms of language. And to study in French is possible, but it's going to take a lot of really adjusting. mental energy, writing, relearn, or anyway. So I cut you off. So what else do you need to look at? So 26 hours. Find the time.
That's the big thing for me, and time and the money and and because it's at the university.
But you know how it is, those kinds of things. Like if you have the money, then you commit, and then you'll have to find the time.
Yeah, exactly. But because it's with the university that I graduated from, I get a discount as well.
Cool.
So it's but the other thing I'm thinking about. So this whole idea of doing a master's, yeah, great. But the other thing is building my own coaching business. Sure. And actually making money and actually exploring and being out in the real world and dealing with people and phone calls and selling and like all the interesting stuff I'm doing, to me is like, okay, that's way more interesting because I'm exploring that. And I've got a paid coaching call in like half an hour or so. So like that feels more compelling than doing a master's. So I don't know. Unless I make enough money, create loads of money, and then just like, okay, forget teaching, I'll just go do a master's and then whatever. Who knows?
Okay. Yeah, sure. There's a lot of options.
There's loads of options. Or, some sponsor picks up our random conversation on Tangents and decides, yep, that's amazing. We want to throw loads of money.
That is on the long tail of things that might happen.
We start picking up fans who just rave. We see one big fan who raves about us, and then we go viral. And then
Tell you what, though, I'm growing in my subscribership. By the way, like and subscribe if you watch this much. But anyway, at this point, you've had your answer to your question, I think.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that student straight away saw what I was doing.
How do we wrap up? You're the one who should be wrapping this up. You're good at that.
Okay, so the way we wrap up is we say...
I mean, we can keep talking for hours, but you just said yourself you had a coaching conversation. It's now just over. It's past the hour, so...
It is. So I will wrap up by saying, think of the metaphor that Willem gave us of being at school, playing with that thing where you're trying to mold yourself.
Thing?
It's a school thing. It was a play school thing. It was a preschool thing. You're trying to mold yourself to fit in the hole, and then you spend 30 years pushing yourself through, you get through, and you die. Are you going to do that or not? Find out what you love, do more of that, and then who knows where it will go.
What you love is part of the analogy. It's like if you imagine you're going to be spending your whole life doing this one thing, you better know it's something that you like.
You better. And money doesn't make.
Well, actually, that doesn't necessarily help because that's like more pressure. Sorry. Actually, the other way to look at that is like you can always change, and you will. So getting ready to mold and remold yourself is a better idea.
Yes. Yeah, and deep work is a way of getting to that. And I changed careers to become a teacher and took a pay.
Yeah, I changed careers several times.
And stepped down from quite a senior.
And I changed life several times.
Yeah, I stepped down from quite a senior position in my job as well. Yeah, you've lived all over the world.
Yeah.
There's no one way.
Had an impact on my trust fund, but that I don't have.
You have a trust fund? Wow.
No, I don't have a trust fund. I do not. I don't. So I don't even know what it is really. I should look at exactly how it works, but I know that it's money somewhere.
Oh yeah, actually,
money and assets, possibly even.
There's one more thing I wanted to say. Thinking about this, life is limited and it's precious, and we want to make the most of it. Yesterday, my wife and I, we went through a first draft of creating our wills. We don't have any dependents yet, but it's quite a sobering, interesting thing to do, to be reflecting on that. And Willem and I are older, but it does bring into perspective that make the most of the moments you have. Yeah. I think that's what I want to say to wrap up.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Don't forget to pick up. You'll find your questions for next week.
Yeah.
Cool.
I hope so.
Maybe you'll get new ones. Otherwise,
if not, I'll get loads more.
Yeah. Awesome.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.